Alright, you have all been asking for a vlog on Jeffrey Epstein. I wasn't gonna do one because I didn't think I had anything insightful to add to the conversation, but something happened today which I found to be very fateful. For those of you who don't know me, I am Viva Frei, a Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. It was almost 2.5 years ago to the day that I did a video called The Last Trial. It was what was supposed to be the last trial in my litigation career as a lawyer. For those of you who watched that video, you'd know that I got sick on what was supposed to be the trial day. It was the only time in my 10+ years as an attorney at that time that I ever missed a day because of sickness. There were other delays in the trial, but lo and behold, 2.5 years later, today, I got judgment in that trial, and when I was reading that discussion, something came to mind and I said, yes, I do in fact have something insightful to offer into this particular discussion. For those of you who don't know what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein, I'm pretty sure you are living in a bunker under a rock, and I think it is safe to assume that it is so obvious that everyone has at least a slight idea of the Jeffrey Epstein situation that I'm not going to go into a detailed summary. Suffice to say that Jeffrey Epstein he was a billionaire who made his money in finances or something. Nobody really understands how he made his money. He was arrested on sex trafficking charges and got some sort of sweet plea deal as a result of some political chicanery way back when that resulted in him being a registered sex offender but suffering ultimately no consequences for the crime he committed. Only recently did the absolute absurdity of the plea bargain deal that he got over a decade ago come to light, and people started asking questions. Then new charges came for sex trafficking, where he was facing up to 45 years in jail, and he was put on suicide watch while being held in a notorious Manhattan maximum security prison, because apparently a few weeks ago he was found unconscious with bruise marks around his neck, and there is some discussion as to whether or not he attempted to commit suicide or he was the subject of some sort of attack. But he was placed on suicide watch, right up until the day when the suicide watch was lifted, a day after a trove of documents were unsealed in previous defamation lawsuits, which were interesting to say the least in terms of who got caught up in this net of allegations on sex trafficking, and Google it. So Jeffrey Epstein is being held on suicide watch in a Manhattan maximum security prison. He is probably public enemy number one and possibly, arguably, if not obviously, the most notorious criminal in the United States, given the far-reaching implications of what is being alleged against him and the people that might be tangled in the web of crimes. And what happens while Jeffrey Epstein is on suicide watch in a Manhattan maximum security prison? Apparently, the suicide watch was lifted the day after this trove of documents was made public. Not only was the suicide watch lifted, but apparently his cellmate was mysteriously removed from his cell just hours before Jeffrey Epstein allegedly committed suicide. Not only was the suicide watch lifted the day he allegedly committed suicide, not only was his cellmate removed just a few hours before he allegedly committed suicide, but apparently the Manhattan prison security guards are working so much overtime that they had forgotten to do the 30-minute periodic checkups to make sure that Jeffrey Epstein was okay in his cell. Apparently something like 2+ hours had gone by where no one had gone to his cell to make sure that he was in fact alive and well. Not only was he taken off suicide watch, not only was his cellmate removed from his cell hours before his apparent suicide, not only were the security guards so tired and overworked that they forgot to do the 30-minute periodic checkups, there is no camera footage from inside his cell that captured the alleged suicide. Not only that, but the coroner doing the autopsy now has to wait for further information before releasing the results of the cause of death of the defunct. Now this goes back to something we talked about in previous vlogs, which was the appearance of conflict of interest and the appearance of justice. Even if one disagrees with the outcome of the process, one has to have the feeling, the impression, the sentiment that the process itself is functioning the way it should. There is nobody that can look at this process and think that the process is functioning the way it should. Even if you believe that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, one cannot look at all these facts and get the impression, have that comfort in the pit of your stomach that things are working the way they should. Not only that, it is obvious for anyone with the slightest degree of critical thinking that something is rotten in Denmark. Something doesn't make sense about the process. People are becoming aware of the fact that the system is so patently broken, it doesn't even give the impression of being just and functioning anymore. You have Jeffrey Epstein, you have Jussie Smollett, you have a slew of examples of a broken system. You have a slew of examples of broken media. And people can throw around the term conspiracy theorist as much as they want in order to discredit what others might just consider to be rational critical thought. But on its face, the system is not working, and people are becoming aware of it. But regardless, I am just rehashing what a lot of other people have said, and a lot of other people have said it better than me because a lot of people don't have the same inhibitions that I have as relates to the content I produce on YouTube. Go check out the amazing Lucas. He is amazing. He did a number of amazing videos on the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Go check out Styx Hexenhammer 666. He is amazing. He did a lot of amazing videos on this subject. Go check out Tim Pool. He is amazing and also did amazing content on this particular subject. So what insight do I have to offer that others have not yet offered into this situation? It comes down to an element of the judgment I got in my case today. For those of you who are interested, incidentally, we won. We won hands down, and it's great. Yay, woohoo! Subject to all the procedural formalities that go into a judgment, even when you win, we won. Whoop-de-doo. I'm not going into detail in it because the detail doesn't matter, the parties don't matter. It is the grand principles of law that matter, and that is what we're going to talk about right now. Presumptions of law and presumptions of fact. Presumptions of law are presumptions that exist in virtue of the law. They're pretty simple to understand. If you refuse to submit to a breathalyzer, some jurisdictions will take that as a legal presumption of intoxication. If you are intoxicated behind the wheel of a car, even if you had no intention of operating that vehicle, in some jurisdictions, that constitutes a presumption of law of intention to operate a vehicle, and you can be charged with DUI. Presumptions of law exist in virtue of law. Presumptions of fact exist in virtue of the facts. And sometimes the facts are so contemporaneous, they fit together so well, they are so logically interconnected that even if there are not empirical or observable conclusions, one can come to certain conclusions by virtue of the proximity of the facts. In my particular judgment, there was a question as to what the brown and yellow liquid could be that was running down from the balcony above my client's property. The lawyer was hypothesizing that we could not know exactly what that liquid was because it could have been rust, it could have been color running off the woods, it could have been liquid from decaying leaves. And I said, that's all very fine and well, Your Honor, but we see 3 inches of dog feces and urine on the balcony right above where the yellow and brown liquid is running onto my client's property. We can safely presume, in fact, that the liquid running down, which is brown and yellow and sticky and smelly, we can presume, based on the proximity of the 3 inches of dog feces and urine right above the liquid, that is in fact poo-poo pee-pee juice. And the judge agreed. Bringing this all back to Jeffrey Epstein, there is going to be debate going on as to whether or not Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, whether or not he was murdered, or whether or not it was a facilitated suicide. As in to say, people knew that he would commit suicide if given the opportunity, so people pulled strings to give him the opportunity to do that which they knew he would do if given the opportunity. It all comes to the same thing. We have 5 known facts as of today, and although it's still early in the situation, things will develop. We have 5 known facts as of today. He was taken off suicide watch. He was taken off suicide watch the day after a trove of incriminating documents were released in a defamation case from over a decade ago. His cellmate was removed from his cell just hours before he allegedly committed suicide. There is no camera footage in a maximum security prison of one of the most high-profile criminals in all of the country, if not all of the world. I can't remember what the 4th one was, but the 5th one is that the coroner requires further information before announcing the cause of death. These are the facts that we have now, and given the egregiousness of these facts, we cannot blame people or label them conspiracy theorists for coming to certain conclusions. Some people might conclude that this was outright murder. Others might come to the conclusion that this is just gross incompetence of the federal prison system. Others might come to the conclusion that this was in fact suicide, but facilitated suicide. First of all, as far as incompetence goes, if this is in fact incompetence, this sort of reminds me of the orgy of evidence that we had in the movie The Minority Report. This is an orgy of incompetence. Anyone who's going to believe that this is in fact incompetence is going to have to believe that we had a string of events, a statistical anomaly of a sequence of incompetence. I mean, if this were a movie and this is how the movie were written, we would say that the movie is absolutely implausible, poorly written, because nothing can possibly happen like that in real life. It's too stupid to believe. Regardless, people might believe that this is incompetence, and they might believe that there is just a sequence of unfortunate events that culminated in the grotesque incompetence that resulted in the situation. Others might believe that this was facilitated suicide. Others might believe that this was murder most foul. But the point is that you can't blame anyone for believing any of this right now because the system on its face is broken. And when a system on its face is broken, people are going to start filling in the blanks with the explanations that they feel are reasonable to account for the broken nature of the system. I think the only indication of how long it takes me to make this vlog is going to be the tide lowering, because the tide, when the tide is up, I would be 10 feet underwater by now. It's amazing. The geology, the natural landscape in New Brunswick is glorious. Anyone who has never been here, you have to travel here. All right, all that to say, presumption of law, presumption of fact. There are a series of facts here that are going to allow people to come to their own conclusions, and throwing around the term conspiracy theorist no longer casts aspersions on the person that is being called the conspiracy theorist. At this point in time, it is becoming so obvious to so many people that people are taking it as a notch in the belt, a feather in the hat, a trophy. Because to a great many, being called a conspiracy theorist means that the person calling you that name is no longer engaging in critical thinking. All right, that is it. If you like this content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Another observation, presumption of fact that I'm noticing is that my channel is getting like very few new subscribers. I don't know if I'm being recommended with the same frequency I once was. I don't know if YouTube now considers me alternative media that needs to be suppressed to the mainstream media. Regardless, I'm going to keep doing the vlogs so long as I think I have something insightful to add. And now you know your vlog. Peace out. Boom!